Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Flavor of the Week, brought to you by Cap and Cork Beer, Wine, and Spirits, with 15 locations in Fort Wayne and New Haven. In good spirits, in good company. In Flavor of the Week, Kyle sits down with one of our local priests over 4 different episodes to sample variations of a favorite food or drink while they discuss the ins and outs of life as a priest.
This is Kyle Hyman. I am here with Father Craig Borchard for the first installment of our Flavor of the Week. Thanks for being here, Father Craig.
Awesome to be here. Thank you.
Hanging out in the rectory / parish offices.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Old building, 1910.
Okay.
Yep.
It's got a very classic feel to it.
It does.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for flavors, you said beer and then listed off a bunch of really funny names, which people thought that you were just making stuff up.
Yes.
But they're actually real names.
They are real names. Puppy Slumber Party is one of my favorites.
It is.
Yes.
So I've got a bunch to choose from here. Our friends over at Captain Cork hooked us up. Anything in particular you want to start with?
Yeah, I think we need to try that Imperial Stout with the bananas.
Oh, okay.
I think that's this one here. No. Let's see. The brewery. Here it is.
Okay.
Yes. It's just called banana bread.
Is that something you're into? Banana bread beer?
I mean, I like banana bread and I like beer, so we'll see how they go together.
All right. Shall we?
Let's do it. Okay, I'll pour for us here.
Okay. I'm glad it didn't foam over there.
Yeah, percent. So
Okay.
pour a little bit. Yes. It's just for sipping and enjoying.
Okay. All right. Well, cheers.
Cheers. Imperial stouts are better when they're a little warmer, actually. So as they warm up, they tend to open up a little bit, as opposed to lighter beers are better really cold. But these Imperial stouts are better. They actually give you the ideal serving temperature.
Oh, yeah.
45 degrees. But as they warm up, they get really good.
All right.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it so far?
It's good.
It is good.
Yeah, I bet you as it warms up, you'll start to taste the banana a little bit more. You can't taste too much of the banana.
It is pretty
right
subtle.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not as syrupy as expecting.
Oh, no.
Sometimes the stouts can, I feel like they're a little thick.
Yeah, pastry stouts are absolutely delicious.
Okay.
So they're great.
Well, good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's very good. All right. So, Father Craig, what was your family life growing up and what was some of your journey in Catholicism and toward the priesthood?
Sure. Well, I was a cradle Catholic. Grew up actually in the Detroit, Michigan area up in the suburbs.
Oh, okay.
You know, I was dragged a little bit to church every week.
At what age would you say
My whole life
felt
actually.
dragged?
More in my teenage years, I guess. I was feeling a little bit more like that. However, as much as sometimes I didn't really want to go to church, I always recognized that going to church was somehow important. Even though I didn't always like going to church, I would never wanted to be late.
Because you got that from your parents or?
Sure.
Something?
From my family,
Okay.
but also I went to Catholic school. I've joked that I went K to P, kindergarten to priest, all in Catholic school. So
Okay.
I literally spent, whatever it is, 19, 20 years, whatever it was. I think it was 24 years, I think. It took me 24 years to just go a couple letters of the alphabet.
Yeah.
But a big turning point in my life, though, was my senior year of high school. I went on a retreat called Kairos. It was my senior year of high school. I went to Brother Rice High School, and that retreat totally just did a 180 in my life. I encountered Jesus in the Eucharist in a way, I was unfortunately not fully aware of how much the Lord had been giving me throughout my life between baptism and confirmation, Eucharist and reconciliation, but I never fully received or knew what a great gift I had been given until that retreat. And the Lord kind of opened my eyes to see, oh, that really is Jesus.
Yeah.
And that totally changed my life.
Do you think it was a lack of catechesis or just you had to be older to appreciate it and it wasn't until you were in high school? Or why had you not had that experience until the retreat?
Some people it is lack of catechesis. I wouldn't say that for me. I was blessed to go to, really great schools my whole life. I was taught the faith well. For me, it was really a struggle with faith. I used to sit in church and just ask the Lord, if you're real, show it to me. Because I struggled. I just struggled. I didn't know.
I feel like that's very common.
Yeah. Is this really real? Is God really real? Is that really Jesus?
Give me a sign.
Yeah. And I would basically, that old prayer, right? Give me a sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. In my senior year of high school, I went on this retreat and I just had this experience, almost hard to explain, of just being in front of the Blessed Sacrament and just seeing the Lord look at me basically and have this just experience that just felt, saw, received this image of just Jesus just looking right at me. And it just pierced my heart and just opened it wide. And then just the graces just flowed right in, and it just opened my eyes to realize, wow, God has been with me all these years, and I just never fully realized it. It's almost hard to explain how radical of a shift that was for me, but that was probably the main turning point. Now, of course, if I hadn't had, my family upbringing, school, learning the faith, and, all those things, I needed that as the ground to launch off of, right? So after that experience, I decided, well, I'd really want to go to a Catholic university, or at least a university where I know that I can grow in my faith.
Sure.
So I had, applied to some different schools, but Notre Dame was my first choice, and I was accepted. Mm-hmm. So came to the South Bend area, and I was at Notre Dame for 5 years. Wow, that was awesome. That really accelerated my growth in the faith, because it started to put some intellectual meat on the bones of that sort of guttural experience that I had in high school.
What were you studying?
Well, I started off in chemistry and I got slaughtered. So I switched over to engineering, which people will scratch their heads. Wait, you went from chemistry to engineering? Doesn't seem any easier. Well, just the way my brain is wired, engineering just fit better with kind of how my brain's wired. And I actually was pursuing my childhood dream of designing roller coasters.
Okay.
This was my childhood dream.
They have video games for that now.
They do. And I played really nerdy games, but I studied civil engineering. And about halfway through my time, I was growing in my faith. I had met a lot of really awesome Catholics, introduced me to this thing called daily mass, which I didn't know existed. And so about my junior year, I'd said that Lent, I would start trying out daily mass, or at least going to mass a few more times a week. So I went, I'd go one extra time a week, Sunday, and then Wednesday or something. Yeah. And then, a couple weeks in, I started doing, Tuesdays and Thursdays and Sundays. And oh my gosh, within a few months, all of a sudden I was going every day and I couldn't miss it. Just having that time of prayer, quiet, receiving the Lord in the Eucharist, it just was awesome. Plus, there was a great community of people that were going and all of that. So I was introduced to theology of the body, which was awesome. Started learning, oh my gosh, there's actually a reason behind all of these teachings.
Right.
This didn't just come out of thin air. The church didn't just decide, for fun, let's teach this, this, and this. And there's actually a reason. There's a theology of the body, behind all these teachings. So there was that. Started, I was doing retreats, and I was just getting more involved with my faith. So I decided there's a requirement at Notre Dame. Let's see, it's 2 philosophy courses and 2 theology courses. Every student, there's a core curriculum requirement.
Okay.
I loved my 2 theology courses.
Yeah.
So I decided, I should add theology, to study my faith more. And so
as a minor or as a
being
major?
a classic, Borchard, I'm an overachiever. Okay. So, or maybe just an overanalyzer. So I decided, let's just go all the way. And so I did the dual degree program, which was great because it gave me, I got to do more credits. Mm-hmm. It also enabled me to go to London. I wanted to do study abroad. My brother and sister-in-law really encouraged me to do that. But having the dual degree, what I did was I skipped a year of engineering, went to London, studied for a semester, just did arts and letters work, theology, and other of my requirements. So I had an amazing experience in London. It's the first time that I wasn't in a dominant Catholic environment, right? Growing up, going to my parish Catholic school, Catholic high school, Catholic university, Catholic. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I'm in London and there's this huge melting pot and there's people of all different, faiths. And by the time I was about a senior, getting near the end of my time at Notre Dame, I was realizing that the Lord had something else in mind for me. I had this dream, being a roller coaster designer. I had worked at Cedar Point for 2 summers, actually, and had a great time, but I had to ask myself this question. I love roller coasters a lot. Do I want to give my whole life to roller coasters? And the answer was simple, and I had peace about it. No, but I just knew the Lord had something else in mind. My heart was stirring for something different. So by my senior year, instead of getting like another engineering related job, I did Notre Dame Vision. It's a retreat program for high school students at Notre Dame over the summer. And I was a counselor. I was actually a musician.
It's almost like a summer camp.
Yeah, kind of. It's like a cross between like a summer camp and a retreat. Yeah. It's really all about discerning your vocation. What are your talents and how can you use your talents to better serve God and his kingdom? But it was a great experience and that was amazing. And I remember after that summer thinking, I think that I have to really consider something in theology because my heart is totally on fire for all this stuff. And I still loved engineering and all that. I didn't dislike it, but there was just something, again, stirring in the heart. So when I finished college, rather than, start a career in engineering, going to some firm, I got a job at the Theology of the Body Institute as an intern. And I'd say next to my Kairos experience, those 4 days in high school, my year at the Theology of the Body Institute was probably right next to Kairos, one of the most important periods, so to speak, or a single kind of moment in my life, that time in Philadelphia. The shortest way to explain it is Jesus kind of kicked my butt a little bit. And Jesus just put his foot down on the accelerator pedal in terms of discernment, growth, maturity, working through, just some stuff, that was lingering from my days in high school and college, and just growing in my confidence and just accepting the amazing gift of myself that, God had made me good, and to accept that gift and to work through a couple areas of, woundedness, relationships, in all sorts of different categories, It was awesome. And I met the most amazing priests when I spent that year at the Institute. We did immersion courses. They're basically a week. It's really more like a retreat than it is a course, but you go through the theology of the body cover to cover. People found healing through this beautiful teaching of John Paul II. And so did I in that year. And again, I just met these most amazing priests. And I remember thinking, I desire that.
Yeah.
They're joyful. They're happy. They're masculine. That's something that is appealing to my heart. Now, at the same time, I had met some really awesome women too when I was there. And so I was, had to really discern well in prayer, between, this beautiful vocation to marriage, this beautiful vocation to, to the priesthood. The final moment when I knew that the Lord was calling me to the priesthood, and I had been thinking about it ever since that Kairos experience. Because all I wanted to do was give that gift back to people. I had received this gift of the faith of Jesus, of the Lord, of God the Father's love. I just wanted to give it back. That's all I wanted. So that had stuck with me all throughout college. And then the final moment when kind of the Lord tipped me over, it was the closing mass of one of the retreats. And I went up to receive communion, which I would normally receive communion on the tongue, but I was kind of in the praise and worshipy mode of having my hands out while I was going up for communion. That day I went up and, did the classic thing where you stick your tongue out and you have your hands out and the priest doesn't know what to do, of course the priest put the host in my hands, which for me was like, in my mind, it was symbolic of like, the priest is the one who holds the host. That's what I was thinking at the time. And so I was thinking about the priesthood and the priest puts the host in my hands. So I receive communion. I go back to my chair and I'm just staring at my hands. And I don't know why. It's so bizarre. I'm in prayer. I'm received the Lord and I'm just staring at my hands. And I start to think to myself, why am I staring at my hands? This is kind of weird. And then the Lord just kind of spoke to me. I didn't hear a voice, but it was very clear in my heart, in my mind. And he said, I want these hands. I want those hands. And then he said, I want these hands to be my hands. And I it was awesome. It really struck me. It arrested me. And I realized that was the deepest desire of my heart, was to be Jesus's hands. And I thought of all the times that I had received healing, over the past year at the Institute by the hand of a priest in the confessional, raising his hand in absolution. And I thought, that's what I really want more than anything, is to facilitate that encounter with the Lord, as I thought in high school, facilitate that encounter with the Lord with others. So, make a very long story short, I went to seminary for 6 years and then I became a priest. There was a lot more that happened at seminary, a lot more. But just to close the story, at my ordination, this was the graces of ordination, the actual ordination mass. Every priest has a story about his ordination and what happened. Obviously, they became a priest. That's what happened. But there's a story within the story, a meta story, so to speak. And for me, I had been ordained a priest and celebrating, with the bishop up at the altar. And as a priest, the Eucharist has been consecrated, so you have the Eucharist there. And then during the Lamb of God, the concelebrants hold the host in their hand for a period of time as the Lamb of God is finishing, right? And then you receive the host, but you have this little moment. And Father Andrew Brzezinski once told me it's your little moment of adoration. You get this little moment of adoration where you hold the host in your hand and you're just staring at Jesus. And I felt my heartbeat in my tips of my fingers as I was holding the host, which you're not always aware of your heart beating. And at this moment, as I'm holding the host, I could feel like my heartbeat in the tip of my fingers. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of weird. And then again, the voice, like the Lord speaks to me. Our hearts now beat as one. And I was like, oh, whoa. Just like, and that's a humbling thing. I'm like, who am I? Like, who am I, and it really humbled me, but it also really just struck me it was kind of a closing of that full circle of, the Lord sort of inviting me to be his hands, so to speak, and then to have that kind of come close full circle with, now as a priest, like my heart is supposed to beat, as one with Jesus. Right. Now, if I screw up, when I sin, when I fail in different ways, my heart gets out of sync with the Lord's and I have to receive forgiveness to get it back in sync. But the Lord kind of gave me the ideal in a way at that moment, like that our hearts now beat as one. You now are a priest, and this is what I call you to. And in a way, we're all called to that, of course, sure. To have our hearts beat in unison with the Lord's. But it was a particular grace that the Lord gave me in that moment. So
I have 3 big follow-up questions.
Okay, great.
Oh, we're out of time.
Okay.
So I'll have to save it for next time.
Sure.
But for now, how do you rank the banana bread from the brewery?
Okay, so
bakery.
This is my second sip because I've been talking a lot.
Yeah.
And it's already warmed up and I can taste the banana a little bit more now. It's getting better.
It even after you take a sip, it's like a minute later, I started to taste it.
That's the Imperial Stouts. They're banana. Great. Yeah. So yeah, it's good. I've never had this one before, but the brewery is a good place in California. So
what do you give it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Oh boy. I would say we're 7.5.
Okay.
It's good. It's good stuff. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have to pick up where we left off here in a future episode session of Flavor of the Week.
Awesome.
With Father Craig Borchard.